Okay, so this was going to just be the Prism versus Florian video. Um, and I kind of realized that it's a little bit, um, it could kind of get lumped in with something else because it became a different video. And it became um, just the Aura Plan Part 2. And this is how you respond when they have tech for auras, when they have ways to clear more than one thing in a turn. Because the matchups where I was getting the most questions were all the aura plan matchups that have that can bring tech for us really easily, or can bring some amount of tech that is very effective, let's say, against us. And this is this when I say tech, this is when people have more than just a bunch of poppers. This is not just Victor presented 40 poppers. This is they have a bunch of go again stuff. They have a bunch of action point generating stuff. They have ways to hit stuff behind ALS. This is Vinset Shadow paying life on a Shadow non-attack to make a Rune Chant unpreventable and snipe an Angel behind a Spectra Aura or an Arclight Sentinel. Um, this is more than just poppers because poppers is something we can deal with. We can handle a deck if a deck has 40 poppers. I don't care. I have a solution to that. I have a solution to the poppers. It depends on what kind of poppers, because Brute having 40 poppers is different from Guardian having 40 poppers. But the poppers themselves are not the problem. We can deal with that. We can figure that out. Um, so I separated this into kind of two different kinds of tech of what do these things do, and uh, when people talk about the problem cards in a matchup, these are the things that kind of get mentioned. And I think they fall in these two categories. And the first one is it gets around Arclight Sentinel, or it gets around Spectra. There's which is generally they get to make a second action point with which to like make an action point, not just go again to do two things. If you can get around Spectra, can get around ALS, and I kind of put stuff that just snipes over behind Spectra in this category as well, because it's very similar to me. If it can get around Arclight Sentinel, it's effectively two action points. And then go again. And these are not things that all actually have go again, but it's a way that like if they can hit an angel and then hammer, so like Zealous Belting will can be sent at an angel or at face and then hit Spectra. So it lets them deal with two things with an asterisk, where it's still only dealing with one Spectra aura per turn. But our angels are very relevant threats, and if they can deal with an angel and a Spectra aura, that's still very good for them. So I'm putting that in that category. I'm putting Summer's Fall in that category, and Rouse the Ancients. And I think Runic Reclamation would also go in here. So Summer's Fall is Zealous Belting because it sends 6 at something, and then it also deals with the Spectra aura. It actually deals with it more efficiently because it doesn't destroy it. It puts it back in the deck, but it doesn't let you like merciful trick stuff. Um, but it's still sending 6 with effectively go again. Runic Reclamation is sort of sending 7 with go again. They're both extremely efficient in terms of dealing with auras and stuff. But this is tech that like I'm not really worried about it because it can't deal with 2 Spectra. And it just, the more of this someone has, the more conservative you want to be with your angels, just because um, it becomes very efficient for them to use these cards, and I would much rather trade my life total than an angel to deal with one of these. Now, for the stuff that can get around ALS, this is stuff like Time Snap Potion, Time Skippers, Achilles Accelerator, Roiling Fissure. I'm putting in here, it's not the most effective or most efficient of these. Um, it's very expensive to clear a 4-cost yellow aura with it, but it can very easily clear double Passing Mirage on this turn. That's a very effective way to deal with double Passing Mirage, which is a board state I love playing to in the deck. Channel Millennium Tree, shortened to CMT. This is a way to snipe over Arclight Sentinel. They can send a Rune Chant for 4, and we can't really do anything about it. Or they send Surgent Aethertide for 4. And it's like, yeah, our Angel's gone. That's it. And then, like, Condemn to Slaughter. Trying to force you to sack a Spectral Aura, but you get to choose, so it's a little... it's not... It can get a little weird, but it's still, like, one that we can play around, but it's also one we have to respect. So one of the matchups I get questions on is Prism versus Victor. It's a very difficult matchup, or it's not the most difficult matchup, but it is like the quintessential aura matchup. It is the one in heavy hitters where it's like, yeah, this we play auras into this and we do the thing, and we have tomes and it's great and it's so much fun. Um, and it can be a little difficult because he'll have Zealous Belting, he'll have Rouse the Ancients, Time Snaps, or Time Skippers, one of the two, and he can run Roiling Fissure reasonably well. Um, so the question becomes, how do I play this matchup? Which is the answer is a little bit of it depends, but not a crazy amount. I play it relatively slowly, conservatively. Um, he's not going to pressure me too hard. He can pressure me, but I've got a couple turns to find the cards to fill soul to then get a solid Shariah ALS Genesis pivot. Um, now, if he has time skippers or time snaps, I just generally play through it, and I will take that combo turn into into the tech, knowing it is there, and I'm okay with that because I'm making three things on that turn. I'm making Shariah, ALS, and Genesis, and typically they can only deal with two, so I'll be left with either Genesis or Shariah, um, which is you can make a board still with that. You can keep going. So, like, one of the things that I'll do is I'll try and have an extra card in Soul. I'll try and pivot when I have two cards because that means I don't need the Genesis trigger on that turn after the pivot for Shariah to draw me two cards again. Because if I can make two auras on that turn, then I'm starting to get into business. And Library also helps with all of this because Library means, like, if you drop a passing and you get Shariah ALS Genesis passing, that game's kind of over. I don't care what tech they have. Like, that board is just so powerful. Um, I I'm generally just playing through it, and Library does make a big difference in like all of these matchups. Library just kind of breaks the math on what you're doing, um, to where it's like it is almost trivial to um, develop more things than they can deal with, because also stuff like time snaps and time skippers are one-time use. Roiling Fissure they have to find, and it has to not be their only blue on the turn. They have to have at least two blues, or including it, which isn't bad if they want to clear passing, but they need like three blues, four blues? They need four blues to effectively clear a Genesis and Hammer. They need Roiling, Hammer Pitch, and then two cards to pitch to Roiling. Yeah. Like, I'm not super worried about it, and I just kind of go face first into it. Now, the other half of playing through it is understanding that sometimes your first combo will fizzle. And this can happen anyways. You take that turn, they only get to clear Arclight Sentinel, and you draw up four Heralds. Genesis trigger, Figment. Okay. I don't have any auras. That's fine. I might hardcast that Figment at that point, in all honesty. Um, but if you just don't find auras for, like, let's say 3 turns, you just don't have a board anymore. And that happens. It definitely can happen. It's part of why I like putting Parable in the deck. But their tech just says you have 2 turns to find another aura to maintain a board instead of 3. If they can clear ALS Genesis on that turn, it just means you have that turn to make something instead of that turn and another turn. So you have 4 cards instead of 8 to find more board state. So they're just making it a little bit easier for your combo to fizzle, which is fine because that's something that can naturally happen anyways. So what do we do after that is we have to find a way to pivot again, to combo again. And it's not necessarily easy. This is where you really have to get creative, and this is where it, like, I can't say it depends anymore. Like, God, that's just going to stop meaning anything. Like, this is where it becomes less of a science and more of an art, because you have to be able to figure out what's in your opponent's deck and what's left in your deck and understand the tools you have for that pivot. And, like, we now have like Herald of Sechem, which is going to be really interesting for that kind of stuff because you can go get Figments out a lot easier. Um, so what are some of at least the common ways that I set up a second pivot? And these are probably fairly commonplace at this point. But the obvious, the immediate one is you play merciful or you find a merciful retribution, you arsenal it, you wait until you find a Genesis, and this you can flip flop this where you put the Genesis in arsenal, you wait till you find a merciful, you play the merciful out, they hit merciful because they have to. If merciful will let you reestablish a board by just getting a bunch of angels, so they have to hit it. It goes to soul, vestige gets online, you play Genesis off a light blue, and then you can like go into another Shariah turn. Um, the other common one, and this is still like you have a Genesis Shariah board, and you're probably thinner. If your first one fizzles, you're probably thinner on Heralds at this point, and you're very unlikely to fizzle a second time. At this point, it's hard. Um, as well as the Merciful and Genesis by themselves give you enough soul to flip and draw two off Shariah, and you had to have gotten a third soul to get Shariah out from the deck, presumably, unless you hardcast it. Um, so then you have soul for the next turn if they clear Genesis. So you have this kind of just like sets up itself, and you can do this before Halo. You can do either of these before Halo is before you use Halo, and they're very powerful. They're very good. They're just not as consistent necessarily um, on finding that Arclight Sentinel to drop in front of Shariah to protect it. The other common way to do this is pop Dreamweavers, send Herald of Erudition, Angelic Wrath it over the top, and then you go and draw two more with Shariah. This is also very common. Do it a lot. The Herald of Erudition is your soul, is at least one of the soul, as well as the Figment Tutor for Shariah. Now, the asterisk on both of these is you have to have rebirthed or Avalon Shariah. You have to use the ability of Avalon to put Shariah back in your deck. And then you have to fetch it out again. It's not easy, and this is where I say that it becomes a little bit more of an art than a science, because you have to, I feel like I'm making it up as I go along when I'm doing this stuff. Like there's so much context and no game plays out the same. And I've had some ludicrous games. I've had some absolutely insane games. Like I know I had a Victor game against my local who brings like time snaps and Nullrun boots into me and double hammer to because he knows it's going to be a long game and like how much arcane damage he's going to take and how slow he has to play, and he knows the matchup really well. And one time he just Miller Grindstoned my Shariah off the top of my deck, and my Halo turn was literally just to play a Genesis and Avalon back Shariah into my deck. That was the entirety of my Halo turn, and I still end up winning that game because I just get another like Herald of Erudition pivot into Shariah, into Arclight Sentinel. Like these are the pieces where we kind of make it up as we go along, and it's not easy. And you kind of just have to do a little bit of figuring out, a little bit of trial and error of like when do I need to go, when can I go, how much do I need to push it. But there's some common threads that you can go through, and those things are typically Vestige gets online and Shariah comes back out a second time is the way I do it. Um, and this is also partially why I don't soft loop. Um, Prez's video that I referenced earlier when I talked about loop, I don't soft loop where I just like flip Avalon, like draw an Arclight Sentinel with library and 5 cards, and I just flip Avalon and swing with Avalon and start looping Arclight. I don't typically have Avalon for that. I prefer using Avalon like this, and I might be wrong. But this is why looping for me is such a low priority, is because as soon as they have tech, I want to rebirth Shariah because it's the most powerful thing the deck can do. Is just snowball out of control because I'm drawing extra cards. It's why library is so good. You snowball out of control because you're drawing an extra card every turn. So, um, and maybe that's something I need to be more cognizant of is like, oh, it fizzled, but I have 6 soul now. And I still have 3 soul shields in my deck plus 2 mercifuls. Probably just go for a soft loop and just win like that. Find library, soft loop, do that. But this is an option. This is another tool in your toolbox for playing this deck, for playing the Aura Plan. It's not easy, and you're gonna have to figure out which one it is as you go. But that's like these are some of the things that I use in the Victor matchup all the time. And part of it is he's relatively slow for some of the aura compared to some of the aura matchups. Um, and you can take your time. You can set up against him. You can build up your soul a little bit. You can just relax. Relax a little bit. Don't worry about the poppers. You can figure that out. You can figure out how to get double passing on the board. You can figure out how to get double parable on the board. You can get merciful on the board in response to Ward 2 pop. We can work through the poppers. You have the tools to deal with poppers. And some of that stuff is just like on the second turn of your pivot, you draw into an Arclight Sentinel and you have a passing mirage as well, and you just go ALS passing. And that's your entire turn. And that's fine. That's excellent. That's a great tool when you just drop that in front of Shariah Genesis ALS passing. If you ever hit that board, it's so good. Getting passing out is important in this matchup. It is because you need to fix the heralds to some degree, um, but you have the tools to do that. Prism versus Verdance. This is not thought of as a difficult matchup for Prism, but there's some weird stuff that can happen, especially on your pivot turn, because of just Striders and Waning Moon. I honestly don't know how good the Icelander matchup would be for new Prism, just because like swinging Angels at any point ever is very difficult. And then they have a decent number of poppers, not a huge amount, but it's like you're going to lean very heavily on you would lean very heavy on the yellow auras, which is what you do in Verdance. Um, and something I started doing in this matchup is I would just play through their Striders. And I would just be like, go ahead. I will Halo for Shariah, do the thing, and declare attack with Shariah. And I'd say I put the attack on the stack, pass priority. And pretty much without fail, they're like, yep, Striders, kill Shariah. And I'm like, sure, play Genesis out of Arsenal. And they look down at their empty hand because they Striders and Waning Moon me. And Genesis just sticks. And then the board goes. And I play through it. I take the thing that they're trying to use to counter me, and I just play straight through it. I just like Genesis is enough. All I need is a Genesis in this matchup. And then I go and I Avalon back Shariah. Because looping in that matchup is like not relevant. It's not useful. Because they have plenty of ways to hit over Spectra or clear angels around Spectra. Two, they can just send Arcane at you and kill you that way. ALS can like help protect a Genesis, which can be super important. But like, I just trade my Halo essentially for I trade Halo for their Striders, their turn, and I get a Genesis, and I just play straight through it. And it's not like big, but it's just like I understand that they have this thing they can do, and I choose to just eat it because I know I can handle it. I know the deck can take it. I know I can still get there. I'm not afraid of it. I just trust the deck to do the thing, develop more threats than they can deal with. And if I develop Shariah and their response has to be activate Stormstriders, then they can't deal with Genesis. And I have created more threats than they can deal with. And that's where I want to be. That's all I got. That's all I want to be doing right there is that. So what if we can't play through it? What if the deck can't handle it? We have to try and counter it in a way. This is really exemplified by the Vincent matchup, where just like playing the standard aura plan doesn't really work, in my opinion, and playing the Herald plan does not work. And I think that's more than just my opinion at that point for that one. So we had to like try and counter it a bit. We had to take advantage of the way rune chants interact with Spectra. We have to take advantage of weird things that happen when they have to bring in all their go again for Spectra, their ability to block changes. And then like changing the way that we use Halo, because we need certain things to go certain ways in that matchup, but we had to actually do stuff to counter it. We couldn't just play through it. It wasn't enough. So this is where the Florian matchup comes in a little bit. It's still, there's some degree of play through it because it's stuff like Summer's Fall. It's stuff like Swarming Gloomveil. Okay. But there's some amount of we have to do some work to counter what they're doing because it's not enough to just do our thing and the deck gets through. We have to tweak things just a little bit in different spots, and we can get in my opinion, a much more playable matchup. And I'm gonna preface this with if the Florian has like no tech for us, or it was like just after Rosetta came out, I think we got like 60% into Florian. On release, when people are still figuring out the deck and all of that, I think we got like 60%. If Florians at this point are like super teched for us, I think it's somewhere in the 30 to 35 range if the Florian also knows what they're doing. Um, but I don't see that level of tech in most decks. I'd be curious, actually. I haven't looked at the full Runaways list yet. Sorry, guys. Um, but their list sounds like it does pretty well in Prism and it's pretty well built for Prism. Um, but it can vary a lot depending on the Florians you see. But if you have a Florian in your area who knows you're on Prism and has lost you a couple times, they start putting a crazy amount of tech in the deck for you. And it can get very difficult. Very difficult. I think it's still winnable, but it's hard. And that's because they come with everything. They have Summer's Fall, Swarming Gloom Veils, and Rune Rager Swarms sometimes. They just have Rune Chants that go over Spectra, same as Vincent does. He can't make them unpreventable, but he can send larger numbers of them, or more awkward numbers of them, I should say. He can run Condemn to Slaughter, Runic Reclamation, Channel Mount Heroic, Channel Millennium Tree. There's so many things. He can just put as many 7 power poppers in his deck as he wants as well. He can put Red Fruits, Red Fighting Spirit, Red Autumn's Touch, Runic Reclamation. Like, that's 12 already. And there's probably more that I'm not thinking of. Um, so the question becomes, how much do we play through and how much do we counter? I think we can play through stuff like Summer's Fall because like Verdance has that. It's the same. It's similar to Zealous Belting, but the play patterns are more efficient. But it's kind of similar to Zealous Belting. That's fine. Runic Reclamation is similar. It's now a 3 for 7 though, so basically it's always going to hit and clear an aura, which is just a pain, unless you have a Parable or something. Parable plus Soul Shield is a great way to cover that. Um, but then it's so how much do we play through and how much do we counter? And there's a few things that I think we can actually work to counter. And the first one is Condemn to Slaughter, which on face value, you take your standard pivot turn, and it's Shariah, ALS, and Genesis. Now, if they play Condemn to Slaughter on that turn, that's really spooky because we don't have that Spectral Shield. Genesis isn't developing those Spectral Shields yet. So, what do we do about that? Because I don't want to sack my ALS. I don't want to sack Genesis to this. Which I think the correct answer is you sack Genesis. Usually, there's 2 ways to think about that, but it depends on the Florian build. Um, but what we can actually do is, well, let's take this a little bit. Let's take this a step further. What if we just have an extra aura? What does it take to have an extra aura? And to have an extra spectral aura is very difficult. That requires basically library. But it's any aura. We don't want to crack gloves for a spectral shield. But what if we just search Figment of Protection on the pivot turn and just get a Spectral Shield, or Figment of War and get a Courage token? Suddenly we can work with this. It means we have to have gotten Shariah out earlier on another turn, which Herald of Second is going to help us with a lot. But suddenly we're not just getting a Spectral Aura blown up by Condemned to Slaughter, and it's now just a blue block 3 for them. It's not a card they want to play, unless they have multiple. If they have multiple, sure. Okay. Yep. Yeah, you can probably have that one, because you also have to make 2 Rune Chants, which if Florian's online, I know is trivial. If he's online, he has to be online. But I think we have a little bit that we can do to counter Condemned to Slaughter, to set up in a way that we don't just get blown out by Condemned to Slaughter, and it kind of becomes not a great card for them on that turn. They'll probably keep it for next turn, although then we have Genesis making Spectral Shields potentially, and then we can cover it that way. So I think there's a little bit we can do to counter this, and it doesn't require us to change a ton. Similarly, Channel Millennium Tree. We want to have an extra Figment and an extra Soul that we can, if we want, fully cover this. We have to sack an Angel to do it. It's expensive. Sacking an Angel is a lot. But it's something we can do, and we probably have to give up Shariah on the next turn anyways. But ideally, we've gotten a board state that they can't really deal with it super efficiently. Or if they actually want Channel Millennium Tree value, they had to take some damage to do so. Um, so it's in the same vein. If we've gotten an extra Figment out, we have a way to cover Channel Millennium Tree. Because if we want to cover Condemned to Slaughter by searching an aura making Figment on our pivot turn, we have an extra Figment that we can sack. I don't love sacking Bellana or Aegis like that, but it can be correct because it lets us do more than we would otherwise. And then just Rune Chance. This is, it's a little bit different from Vincent, where we're kind of like, we kind of fight them over control of the Rune Chant generation and like how they're getting to utilize those Rune Chants and how much they're willing to like let us make a board and have Spectral Auras. Um, but just being a little more deliberate with your spectral shields, how you AB, keeping spectral shields when you maybe wouldn't otherwise, or like something like if they're online but you have a Genesis and it's make a spectral shield but you only have one, and to protect your angel AB you have to AB, that's fine. Give up the card. Next turn, Genesis to two spectral shields, and then you get to um, let the two spectral shields eat the two rune chants for the turn. Just slow down just a touch on this one, and we can like if you like put a little bit more priority on Aegis than on Bellana, make some spectral shields, get to 4 or 5 spectral shields on that turn. Then things can really get out of hand, and the rune chants just don't mean as much. You have ways you can deal with this. You tweak priorities just a little bit. Avalon and Bellana drop just a touch. Aegis priority goes up a bit, and that's something you can work with. The rune chants aren't as much a liability anymore. You're still swinging for 4 on that turn, and they're just going to pitch a card to make 2 rune chants, and you're like, okay, I already did my thing. Go ahead, send it. Come on. Like, adjusting your priorities a little bit can make things a lot easier in this matchup. Now, the biggest thing in this matchup, in my opinion, is this right here. It's Reaping Blade. And in particular, it's this number down here. It is that this attacks for 3. I value my angels so highly in this matchup because they're so difficult for Florian to deal with. Because if I ever get to keep 2 cards just to swing double angel, I'm so happy with that. I'm so happy. I feel like I have won. And it probably, and some Florian players are going to be like, it should never get to that point. It's like, well, how are you going to kill the first angel? You're going to send a Command and Conquer at it? You're going to send a Summer's Fall at it? You can send the Summer's Fall, that's cool. There better not be a Rune Chant with it. Be careful. But this is something that I play around. They don't have Titan's Fist. They don't have a hammer. Play to your conserve your angels where you can. If you need to sacrifice 1 to a Millennium Tree or 2, do it. But understand that angels are very difficult for them to clear, for Florian to clear. Playing to an endgame where you have double angels is so good. It's one of the most consistent ways I have of winning this matchup. If you can get into a double angel endgame safely, it's super difficult for them to clear because you get so much agency. And if they ever like just try and clear 1 at a time, you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to double herald you now. And you better have double 7 powers because I've been saving the triumphs up. This is so important to playing this matchup, is figuring out the spots where you can flip your angels and where you should hold off. Building up extra soul, a couple extra soul here and there, to go flip Bellana ability, and then flip, and you've got 3 angels flipped suddenly, and it's just like the game they cannot deal with it, and they'll just be like felling you, and you're like, block with 1 card, 1 angel goes with a spectral shield. Swing double angel and go angel herald angel. It's so important to the matchup. It doesn't solve it, but this is something where it's like you need to lean into it. You need to utilize it. And I think the last piece for this matchup that's like super important is you need to recognize how fast your Florian opponent is wanting to play the matchup. And part of that is because of Rootbound Carapace. If they are relying on Rootbound Carapace essentially to decompose and get online, play slower. If they're the more D reacts they're on, play slower. Take your time. You can. They will give you time. You do not benefit by just hitting them or trying to hit them, especially on the aura plan where you're not on all of the sevens. Um, if you want to bring in red triumphs, go for it. I'm totally okay with that. I've done that before. Um, but you need to recognize on this one that you need to recognize how fast they are trying to take the game. How aggressive are they? If they are a build that can reliably convert all of their 4 card hands offensively because they have Bramble Sparks plus Rune Rager Swarms plus Swarming Gloomveil plus Channel Mount Heroic plus Tunic, you need to speed up. You need to pressure them. You need to make them respect what happens if you just go. But if they're playing super conservatively and super slowly, take your time. Set up, get a couple extra soul, get an extra figment out off of something. It's you can wait a couple extra turns for library. Make them if they're going if they're playing like this is the thing when they were playing Scepter is like I played this matchup very slowly. And it was great. It was fine. Scepter was so good for us, in my opinion. At least the games that I was having. And maybe that's not the experience that everyone had. But they just played super slowly. They didn't deal with Genesis or Yellow Aura as well. Um, and Parable would put in work. But I could play the matchup as slow as I wanted. And I had so much time to engineer a solution to winning the game. So that's the other side of this for the Florian matchup is you need to figure out very quickly how fast or how aggressive they can play. Because the more if they're on the aggressive end and they're going to pressure your life total, you probably need to try and pressure theirs back. If they're playing super slowly and they're giving you tons of space, take the space, take the time. Yeah. And then the biggest thing for all of this, for all the matchups, is it's going to be trial and error. You have to figure out what works. You have to go see, okay, this I can't push through this. I thought I could push through this. I had pushed through this before. Now I need to counter it a little bit. Now I need to have that extra soul set up so that Shariah can swing again. I need to have that extra figment out to cover for Millennium Tree. I need to have that extra aura out to cover for Condemned to Slaughter. Um, you're gonna have to kind of sit through and figure it out, and it's gonna be matchup by matchup. It's gonna. And it's why my Vincent matchup looks so different from my Florian matchup, which looks different from my Victor matchup, which looks different from the Verdance matchup, which looks different from the Assassins, from Missouri and New. Um, you have to realize the strengths and weaknesses of the opponent, or figure out the strengths and weaknesses of the opponent, and how you can attack the weaknesses, and if you can mitigate the strengths. Because like the brutes, I haven't found a good way to mitigate their strengths. I haven't. It's just not a matchup that I feel comfortable in. And it's like it doesn't always work. We can't just play through it because they just have scabs every turn. So they just have a repeatable source of action points. By the way, I didn't even put scabs up there because I don't even consider that tech. That's their main deck. But I don't have a good way to like we can run Gambler's Gloves, but if they start running Gambler's Gloves, it just like doesn't do much. So I don't have a good way to play through it, and I don't have a good counter for it. And that can happen. Bad matchups are going to happen. They're a thing. But um, yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this one. I hope that this was helpful and a good, reasonable part two. I'll see about doing some gameplay stuff. I can't make any promises on that one. I'm getting ready for Nats, and also just doing everything on high seas. Oh my goodness. Um, but yeah, um, I think I only have like 1 or 2 more videos that I want to do, but I'll see what stuff looks like, and I'm probably going to spend the next few days finishing off the written version of the primer and putting that up. So um, that's going to be it. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Peace.